Well, hello, YouTube. Thank you for joining me today. I do appreciate your time. I do ask that you forgive my cadence as I do not feel very well today, and it's hard to speak in my normal way. I want to make this video while my energy is high enough to express myself from a position of firm resolution. Let's include this video in my Get Real series. Here, my potential to piss off someone is significantly inflated. Here, I do not self-censor. You are encouraged to express your dissent as long as you do comprehend. I am not here to provide you with excessive indulgence and shield you from words you may not like. Feel free to exercise your will and leave if this is not for you. If you do respond, if you do listen to all which is said, I encourage you, I do, to not depart from the manners your parents surely taught you. This addition to the Get Real series will be unedited and not scripted. It is obvious that the Stand Your Ground law is becoming a wedge issue within the U.S. Instead of taking a prolonged, intense look at the law, instead of acknowledging its ambiguity that makes it possible to evade the obligation of not resorting to excessive action, instead of changing the language, well, we insist on something unproductive. We approach some sort of unproductive measures, it appears. Well, not all of us, but most. We have one group that wants to simply discard it and will not acknowledge that it is in our best interest not to throw out the baby with the bath water. Then we have the other side that wants to ignore reality and pretend there are no perceived shortcomings within the law. Nope, it appears many Americans are on the bandwagon to avoiding this option. Instead, this is being used to widen existing divisions in American politics and within the social fabric of America. There's no surprise here, I don't think. Conflict sells. Conflict gives some people something to do with their life. So, again, we have the same old paradigm. We could focus on the acceptable practical application of the law and work from that point. We could examine the underlying philosophy and the satellite issues that add difficulty to it, add difficulty to its assumed intended purpose, that is, which is for self-defense and not murder. Instead, it appears collectively we are restricting ourselves to making this not about the actuality of law, but a battle between blacks and whites, and between Democrats and Republicans. Considering today's society, we need a law that generally eliminates a person's duty to retreat in the face of a serious physical threat. What we do not need is a law that allows one to act excessively simply because they feel threatened. Yes, we know there is a subjective entry to the law and an objective checkpoint, one that requires one to be reasonable in their actions. Supposedly, we understand that the language of the law is not perfect and that it is not uniformed from state to state, nor does it have to be, but it does have to be fair. Now, it would not be wise for us to ignore when we examine this law that states like Florida are pretty slick. Not only do they have this law, but they have a few other tricks up their sleeve. They have various aspects of this law already integrated within the general language regarding self-defense. For example, before the Stand Your Ground law was passed in 2005, there was definitely a different expectation. You were to be able to justify your use of force that was likely to cause death or great bodily harm. If you could, by retreating, avoided such conflict, then the need to use that force, of course, was ignored, and you would be found in fault. So, it will not be enough to just close the loopholes, those who understand that we are battling to make our country better. It is not good for us simply to toss the law away. We will have to look at this state by state, but we will also have to examine the general language of self-defense laws throughout the country. I am for decreasing violence. However, unlike U.S. Attorney Eric Holder, I do not think it is necessary to make it unacceptable for citizens to have the right to carry a weapon for personal protection. I am all for primarily dealing with the core issues and not giving so much attention to the symptoms. I think this is the only way we can make change that actually benefits the great majority within America. And I'm speaking of, hopefully, the rational majority within America. I am not for removing a person's option for defense. In 1995, Holder was addressing the Women's National Democratic Club. It was broadcast by C-SPAN 2. Today, this was brought back to my attention. I remember it clearly. He proposed to use campaigns that were likened to anti-smoking campaigns to change the opinions, the hearts and minds of the people in Washington, D.C., and hopefully later, I'm sure, throughout the country about guns. This said, it is obvious he is not for Americans to have the right to protect themselves. He wanted to rid one of having the ability to carry a gun. If you doubt me, you can go ahead and check out the video. The link will be below. I encourage you, however, to examine methodically a former bill, H.R. 2159. It was named Denying Firearms and Explosives to Dangerous Terrorists, Act of 2009. Basically, it would have allowed the government to disarm citizens based on political views without having to provide any evidence for their claims. Do you get that? Unfortunately, these are the types of mindsets that one has to engage while making changes. So, do not be surprised if certain elements within our government utilize this tragedy in order to rid the American public of the ability to protect themselves, or at least to greatly inconvenience them or to place them in a position where if they had to follow asinine laws, that they would possibly lose their life. This brings me to the part of the video where I address the economic sanctions some wish to take against Florida. But before I get into this, I will bring to your attention Mr. O.J. Simpson's trial. Can you go back? Do you remember that? A jury of his peers found him to be innocent. And I am speaking of the murder trial. Now, I remember witnessing very few Americans who are white to state that the process ran its course, to state that justice was served. No, once the verdict was delivered, people were up in arms because they found fault within it. Now let's go to Rodney King. Do you remember him? I am sure you do. When Mr. King was beaten in the street, it was an activity which was captured on videotape. However, conservative America, many within conservative America, stated, do not believe your lying eyes. Do you remember that? So basically, they were telling you, do not believe the evidence. Surely these officers were not without good reason to produce a regular rate of repetitive blows to his person. Surely they weren't. Remember that? So, when we put things into context, understand that you will not fool me. You're not going to get over on me. This said, some within the gun community are stating it is wrong for others to boycott, that one must honor the Zimmerman verdict. No, actually, one does not have to accept it at all. It is not improper that Stevie Wonder has formulated a judgment due to what he determines to be an inappropriate law. He will boycott Florida and all other stand your ground states until the law is removed. At least this is his declaration. It is not about pushing one's influence on the less informed, as some on the right have declared. Many have the ability to impart knowledge of fact to ourselves. So therefore, we can just push that claim out of our minds. It's so silly. I disagree with Mr. Wonder's insistence of removal of the law, but I do respect him for standing his ground. While I am speaking about what the boycott is and is not, it definitely is not some juvenile exercise. It may be for some, but not for most, I'm sure. It's not some juvenile exercise of showing out because they are not getting their way. It is a matter of seeing quite clearly that justice frequently moves hesitantly towards those who are not of one voice with the mainstream. It is a matter of seeing the judicial system fail one too many times. Mr. Wonder knows that some people are not inclined to even consider change without being placed in an uncomfortable position. Maybe what is occurring is a certain facet of America is showing they do not honor freedom of expression. The Rome of today, America, is best served by caring citizens that understand what Rome is really about and that will put forth ardent criticism. The last thing we need is more disservice by producing thoughtless adulation. For the record, me having issue with the findings of a jury does not make me unpatriotic. It is true to a certain degree that I am bound to legally submit to it until there is a legal cancellation, and may even be philosophically encouraged via personal decision to concede to what was rendered. But that is a personal decision, one that I have the right to make. Nor should any American bow to the weight of shaming tactics. In case you are suffering from a lapse of memory, let me encourage you gently to remember these words. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I know that many of you think that certain aspects of the American population has no respect for the Constitution or knowledge of it. Just understand that you are incorrect. Don't make sweeping generalizations. If you, like I, comprehend what I've just stated, this is our only recourse for political, religious, or social minorities who want to agitate for change. But it is up for public debate to establish whether or not this change is for the best of the country. We need to retire the rhetoric regarding the inappropriateness of peacefully being able to show discontent. Where in the hell are we going in this country? Do you not see what you are playing into when you go down that road? We should all support our fellow Americans when they use the Constitution, when they use the rights that we have to express their grievances. They have the right, as so do you, to make your voices heard. You should support them when they peacefully show discontent with the system, no matter if that is the judicial process in this country or something else. Thank you for your time.